Well, was this who raised son? That's where I came from. That is my aim. Was I'm talking babe. Well, rest of these niggas out here is just fake, son. Look, you can hate, son. You cannot take, son. I've been in every but out of my state, son. Out in the streets, I'm steady blazing. Looking at other nigga like I'm Jason. I ain't the one. This is the case. It's going so hard to think I'm an agent. Going so hard to be said I'm a patient. These are the facts, though. I'm just amazing. There is no other. Hiring my spot and they'll never be vacant. These niggas lazy, they got no places. They wanna love always fucking more Asians. How the fuck we get our regal age? You niggas feminine. My love is only for big, but we have some all day. Always, always. It's when that I pray. Let me get it out the dust. Only thing that I trust, knowing that my niggas gon' bust, stomach up the rush, thinking that you won't get touched. Fuck my brother get crushed, you through too much. Always come through in the clutch. Niggas just do for the touch, cause he thought shit was. Nigga, it was. Know that I do this for dozen. Always kept it 100. Niggas know I never stunned. And I keep shit running, even on the days when the pain keeps coming, or a nigga fucked up and he feel like nothing. Show goes on, I just keep still check my faith. Even on the days I wanna pray, saying how much can I take, still check my faith. Even when these niggas ain't fake, even when it came up to snake, still check my faith. Some days I ain't even wanna wait, some days in my heart had ache, still check my faith. Even on the days I wanna break, some days in my heart had ache, still check my faith.
Dark days, little vision, that's what my heart's a cave, because I'm cynic. Those niggas no more, those my brothers, these niggas ain't the same, this is like different. Thought I looked at my back, I wasn't like fitted, but now I'm back to the back, like still ain't finished. Still gotta be back in the back, you can't stand, making any given chance to bless a white man. Celebrate with both right hand, never lose your grip, I hate to stand for I am. Like a man to show me the right path, I'm rooted in the truth to rule this life plan. And I can never lose sight like a nice man. Something science, now I'm born to fight, man. In the circle of life, how could I tell you, man? I was I had no one, and then I met these minutes, chase how I'm living, they was convicted on that last sentence. Now I need a witness, but no, I'm not Christian, I'm making these Christians, man. I know religion, man, it's exercise, no, but they got this side. You exclusive like Vodka, niggas been up in the burning choppers out. They're crazy, yes, like the doctors out. Just be there, one day you'll be there. Wonder what it is. Look at me, I got actions. I'm so thankful. Yes, I'm so thankful. Used to be ashamed, even before I take
still check my face, even on the days I wanna pray. Saying how much can I take, still check my faith. Even when these niggas ain't fake, even when it came up to snake, still check my faith. Some days I ain't even wanna wait, some days in my heart had ache, still check my faith. Even on the days I wanna break, some days in my heart had ache, still check my faith.
All right, clap it up for the class. This is Tuesday Brotherhood, and I'm Priest and Officer Shagapan of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, right? So to all my brothers out there, Shalom, Yahweh, Bashim, and Shai, Thumb. To my sisters, Yahweh, Shemal, Thumb, Bashim, and Yashai. This is the ISUPK, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yahanna. And since 1969, we've been on a mission for the Lord to raise up an army for Christ, to gather all so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans together again, to fight under the same banner, under the same belief, under the same culture, to be under one baptism, to be of one body, to be in the army of Yahweh Shai, who you know as Jesus Christ, to spread the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments back over the earth again, to rule in his name, right? And so today is the Brotherhood, every Tuesday class. So what I want everyone to do, whoever's watching, everyone in class, take out a notebook, take out a pen, take out your apocryphers, take out your Bibles, because today's going to be a class all about brotherhood. Things that don't demonstrate brotherhood, things that show and demonstrate weak brotherhood, and things that exemplify brotherhood. Brothers who were absolute zealots for the Lord, for their people, right? But first, I want to start off in Zephaniah 2:1. Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. The book of Zephaniah.
Hold on. Go ahead.
The book of Zephaniah, chapter 2, verse 1. Gather yourselves together.
What?
Gather yourselves together.
And brotherhood, we all need to what?
Gather yourselves together.
Brotherhood is also synonymous and goes hand in hand with sisterhood. Sisterhood, in order to have sisterhood, we need to do what?
Gather yourselves together.
In order to unite Black, Hispanic, and Native American men, women, and children, we need to do what?
Gather yourselves together.
We all need to gather ourselves together. Keep going.
Yea, gather together, O nation not desired.
Because we are a nation that is not desired. Black people are what?
Not desired.
Hispanic people are not?
Not desired.
Native Americans are?
Not desired.
We are this nation that is not desired all throughout the earth. Every other race of people, white people, African, Asian, Arabs, whatever, they all have used and abused us in the past and even in today's day and time. Right? We are the only race of people that is not desired, so much so that we don't even desire ourselves. We don't desire to be around one another. We can't stand to be around one another. We're trying to cause strife and hatred and push drugs and gang culture to kill one another because we just don't love one another. Read it again.
Gather yourselves together.
Gather yourselves what?
Together.
And that's what we have to do. And that's why I'm very thankful that the Lord has allowed the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under commanding General Yahanna to do what?
Gather yourselves together.
To gather together, because that's exactly what we need. Keep going.
Yea, gather together, O nation not desired.
And here in the ISUPK, we analyze and understand these scriptures. We understand that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are a nation that is not desired, right? So we come together and teach how we should desire one another, right? So go ahead, drop that, and let's go to the Apocrypha. The first book of Maccabees. Yesterday for history class, we went over 1 Maccabees chapter 1. We're going to go verse 1. 1 Maccabees chapter 1. We're going to go back to 1 Maccabees chapter 1 because we just read Zephaniah 2 and 1, right? Where it says to gather together, O nation not desired. We're not desired by any nation out there, but we always want to be a part of these wicked heathens. We want to be a part of white culture and white society. We want to be a part of African culture and African society. We want to join hand in hand with Arabs and Asians, right? Because we are not desired. We don't desire ourselves. So let's take a look of an example of a lack of brotherhood. Let's go to verse 2. I was in the wrong book. That's chapter 2. All right. Verse 11.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men.
So in this time when we're being ruled and conquered by heathens, right? We decided, wicked men, wicked Israelite men, decided that it would be best to join onto these heathens. Forget about having power for ourselves. Forget about sticking together and standing for the Lord. Forget about loving each other. How about we just focus on getting the heathens to love us, so that way the heathens won't destroy us and they can have mercy on us. Keep going.
Who persuaded many.
They did what?
Persuaded many.
These wicked, low-down, sellout, traitors, treasonous Israelites did what?
Persuaded many.
They persuaded many of their people to do what?
Saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
Do what?
Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen. They wanted to go make a covenant with the heathen. They wanted to go join hand in hand and make deals and treaties and be butt buddies with these devils that were conquering the world, these Greeks, right? Their armies. They wanted to go hand in hand with them. But the Lord told us not to do this very thing with other heathens. Right? If we hold where we're at in First Maccabees, and we go to Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 2. Here we are in our homeland, right? And here we want to make a covenant. We want to make a deal. We want to make a bargain. We want to make peace with these heathens. Instead of sticking together, instead of relying on one another, instead of relying on the Lord, our power, who has proven time and time again, if we just come back to the Lord and serve the Lord and put our lives on the line for the Lord, He would protect us and put all of our enemies below our heels. Put them, bend their necks down for us to step on them. We weren't supposed to make covenants with any heathens. Read Deuteronomy 7 and 2.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 2. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them.
What?
Thou shalt smite them.
So the Lord was giving us all the heathens that were living in our land at this time. And the Lord will always deliver the heathens to us to do what?
To smite them.
To smite them. If we serve the Lord, if we love the Lord, if we obeyed the Lord's laws, statutes, and commandments, if we kept this brotherhood and sisterhood, if we had desired one another, the Lord will allow us to do what to our enemies?
To smite them.
The Lord will allow us to do what to the heathens?
To smite them.
The Lord will allow us to overcome the heathens once again in 2021, now going into the white man's 2022 year. He'll allow us to do what?
To smite them.
Keep going.
And utterly destroy them.
And do what?
Utterly destroy them.
If we held on to this brotherhood, if we held on to this sisterhood, if we held on to the laws, statutes, and commandments of God and served Him, the Lord will allow us to do what?
Utterly destroy them.
We would be able to utterly destroy drugs, utterly destroy alcoholism, utterly destroy homosexuality, utterly destroy lesbianism, bestiality, Democrats and Republicans, destroy capitalism and democracy, destroy filthy, disgusting heathen holidays like Thanksgiving and Halloween and Christmas Eve and Kwanzaa that made up garbage, right? He would allow us to do what?
Utterly destroy them.
We would utterly destroy all our oppressors. Every single race of people that had a hand in our slavery, in our captivity, in our hardships, we would what?
Utterly destroy them.
Anyone that put drugs in our communities, that put guns in our communities, that created gangs for us to kill one another, we would do what to them?
Utterly destroy them.
All of our oppressors, our enemies, our slave masters, all of these other races of people that have had a hand in our downfall, in our torture, in the abuse of our people, who furthered the pain and suffering of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, all we have to do is come back to the Lord. All we have to do is obey His laws, statutes, and commandments. All we have to do is once again desire one another, gather together, keep this brotherhood, fight for this brotherhood, sacrifice for this brotherhood, and God will allow us to do what?
Utterly destroy them.
We would utterly destroy all that stand against God. We would utterly destroy all that would dare stand against the army of the Lord, which is blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. The army that Commanding General Yahanna has been raising for our King Jesus Christ. to fight in the name of the Most High Power. Keep reading.
Thou shalt make no covenant with them.
We should what?
Not make no covenant with them.
So here we're being instructed that we're not supposed to make covenants with heathens. But what happens in 1 Maccabees 11? What did wicked Israelites want to do? What did disobedient Israelites want to do? What did Israelite that had no brotherhood, that had no sisterhood, that were all about selling out, that were all about giving up on their people and not caring about the Most High God, what did they want to do?
Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
So here they wanted to make a covenant with the heathen. But what does it say in Deuteronomy?
Thou shalt make no covenant with them.
We're not supposed to make any covenant with any heathen. We're not supposed to make any deals, any peace treaties, strike any bargains, right? We're not supposed to come into terms with any of these disgusting heathens, especially when they have a hand in killing our people, slaughtering our mothers and children, hanging our infant babies by the necks. We're not supposed to do what?
Make no covenant with them.
But in 1 Maccabees, these wicked, disgusting, low-down, dirty, treacherous, treasonous Israelite men wanted to do what?
Make a covenant with the heathen.
They wanted to go against what God told us not to do. They wanted to go against the brotherhood. They wanted to go against the sisterhood. They wanted to go against the benefit and the well-being of the nation of Israel. Keep going in the Maccabees.
That are around about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
We have what?
Have had much sorrow.
Since we departed from them, right? Since we left under the rulership of these heathens and we're among ourselves, what has happened? There have been what?
Have had much sorrow.
There's been what?
Have had much sorrow.
Since we left Egypt, our people were under what?
Sorrow.
Since we left Babylon, we were what?
Sorrow.
Since we left Assyria, we experienced so much what?
Sorrow.
So we want these Greeks to rule us because we're feeling what?
Sorrow.
We're in such a disarray. We're so sorrowful. We're in pain. We're hurting. We're oppressed because they're not ruling over us again. So we think that by joining them, it would end our sorrow. We think by joining Christianity, we can have our oppressors stop murdering us and stop raping us and stop violating us and stop killing our children. We think by joining America, we will get drugs out of our communities. We will stop barrels and buckets and crates full of guns and drugs from being dumped in our neighborhoods, right? We would stop the CIA and the NSA and the FBI working to destroy our people. We're in so much sorrow ever since we left that captivity. But let me get that scripture, right? The scripture that says this, the paraphrase that goes down to Egypt. Let me get it for you right now. Don't know off the top of my head. Isaiah chapter 31. Hold where we are in the Maccabees and let's go to Isaiah 31.
The book of Isaiah.
Hold on. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 1.
Now remember, in the book of Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11, it says, let us make a covenant with them. Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So they want to go and make a covenant and go join these Greeks. Because they're, ever since they left from their rulership, ever since they left under heathen rulership and captivity, they've experienced so much sorrow. Well, let's see what the Lord says. Let's see what these wicked men decided to throw away and not remember. Keep going.
Woe to the rebellious children!
It says death and destruction to the rebellious children. Death and destruction to these wicked Israelites that convinced our brothers and sisters that it would be better to go make a covenant with the heathen than obey the Lord, than obey the law, statutes, and commandments, than obey the words of the priests and prophets that came before us. Death and destruction to those wicked Israelites that wanted to go make a covenant with the Greeks, that wanted to go make the covenant with the Egyptians, that wanted to go make a covenant with the Romans and the Babylonians and the Syrians and the Persians. Death and destruction to them. Keep going.
Saith the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me.
Because they wanted to take counsel. These wicked Israelites took counsel amongst themselves to decide and determine what would be best for the nation of Israel. What would be best for the brothers and sisters, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. They took counsel amongst themselves, these wicked Israelites, and thought that it was a good idea to go make a covenant with these goddamn devils instead of taking counsel with who?
Of me.
Instead of taking counsel of the Lord. These wicked Israelites did not take counsel of the Lord. They didn't refer to our holy scriptures. They didn't refer to the past, the records of our ancestors. They didn't take into account what had happened to our ancestors. They decided to take counsel amongst themselves, these wicked brothers, these wicked sisters, and convince the nation of Israel that it would be better to join these heathens. Keep going.
And that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit.
And they covered themselves in a covering that does not represent the Lord. They covered themselves in a covering that did not stand and glorify the righteousness of the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God. They covered themselves with a covering of selfishness, of fear, of cowardice, of treason, of disobedience. That's what they covered themselves with. Keep going.
That they may add sin to sin.
These wicked Israelites did what?
That they may add sin to sin.
By these wicked Israelites convinced the nation of Israel to add what?
Sin to sin.
They thought that it was best to go make a covenant with the heathen in order for them to do what?
Add sin to sin.
They thought that the reason why they were suffering so much was because they weren't under the captivity and rulership of these devils. But all that these Israelites were doing were what?
They add sin to sin.
All they did was adding sin to sin. The reason why blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans suffer throughout any period of time is because we what?
Add sin to sin.
We commit sins. We disobey our God. We break his laws, his statutes, and commandments. We throw away and give up our holy covenant. So we add sin onto sin. We count, you know how there's compound interest when you don't pay your credit card bill? Well, we had compound sin. Sin just kept adding on top of sin and adding on top of sin because we wanted to be disobedient, because we wanted to go join these heathens. Keep reading.
Verse 2, that walk to go down into Egypt.
That what?
That walk to go down into Egypt.
Hey, listen, this is in Isaiah. But right now in the Maccabees, they wanted to go walk down into Egypt for protection. They wanted to go walk down to the Greeks, to Antiochus for protection, for sympathy. So that way they wouldn't murder them. They wouldn't take advantage and rob them and rape them and enslave them. Right? Keep going.
And have not asked at my mouth.
And what?
And have not asked at my mouth.
And instead of inquiring of the Lord, they decided to go inquire amongst themselves. They decided to have counsel amongst themselves and determine amongst themselves without even referencing the scriptures, without even referencing the past. Keep going.
To strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh.
They wanted to get some type of strength, some type of protection in the name of Pharaoh. But here they wanted to get some strength and protection under Antiochus the fourth. Because right now he's the dominant player on the earth at this time. Right? Persia can't stand against them. The ruler in Egypt, Ptolemy, is scared of him. He's dominating the earth right now. One of the most powerful people on the earth. Military strength and might. Extremely brutal and savage. Keep going.
And to trust in the shadow of Egypt.
And they wanted to trust in the fake power of Egypt. They wanted to trust in the lies of Antiochus. They wanted to trust in the belief that they'll be taken care of, that they'll be protected. Real men of the Lord don't trust in our enemies for anything.
Right.
Because they know that their words are smoother than butter. And the only thing that can protect brothers and sisters of Israel, the only thing that can guarantee the unity, strength, and survival of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans is the trust in the Lord. Is the belief that the Most High will take care of us as long as we obey his laws, statutes, and commandments. And these wicked men forgot all about that. These wicked men threw that to the curb. Did not care about any of that. They cared about themselves. They wanted quick relief from the sorrow that they convinced everyone we were under. Keep going.
Verse 3. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh.
Therefore shall the strength of Greece, the strength of Antiochus the fourth's empire, the strength of his empire, keep going,
be your shame.
Shall be our shame. And you know what? It was our shame. Right? And let's go back to the book of Maccabees. Hold where you are in Isaiah. And let's go back to the book of Maccabees. Let's find out what our belief in the strength of Antiochus brought to our shame. Let's see how much shame we received for not going to the Lord and going to a white devil named Antiochus. Let's see how much shame came upon the nation of Israel because men decided to make brothers and sisters turn their back against the Lord. Let's see how much shame was what grew amongst brothers and sisters. Go to verse 13. No, go to verse 12.
Verse 12. So this device pleased them well.
So all our brothers and sisters, the majority of them, were pleased of the idea that we should go and join hand in hand with the heathen, join hand in hand with the Greeks and King Antiochus. Right? Come on now. This pleased them well. These wicked Israelites were able to convince other blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to go along with their idea, with their plan, with their suggestion. And they didn't even consider to take counsel of the Lord. Continue.
Verse 13. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king.
Now they got so bold and they wanted to fully immerse themselves in this heathen culture, in this heathen society. Keep going.
Who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
So King Antiochus gave us permission to do exactly like the other heathens. Keep going.
Verse 14. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
So we began to do the same things that these devils did. The Olympics is what these devils created. all the gymnasiums and these sport athletic things and wrestling naked and all that nasty garbage, we decided that we wanted to do the same thing as them. We didn't want to be brothers to our brothers. We wanted to be brothers to these heathens. We wanted to dress like them, look like them, walk like them, talk like them, everything just like these heathens. Now let's see the shame that builds up. Keep going.
Verse 15, and made themselves uncircumcised.
We did what?
Made themselves uncircumcised.
Shameful. Keep going.
And forsook the holy covenant.
Even more shameful. Keep going.
And joined themselves to the heathen.
Shameful. Keep going.
And were sold to do mischief.
And were what?
And were sold to do mischief.
And when we were sold and happy and willing to sacrifice our law, statutes, and commandments, to sacrifice our love for the Lord, to go do mischief, to go and commit sin, to add sin onto sin. Now let's see where all this gets us. Go down to verse 20. Now let's see our shame. Keep going.
Verse 20. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt.
After Antiochus, this devil destroyed Egypt, and the other devil, Ptolemy, that was ruling. Keep going.
He returned again in the 143rd year and went up against Israel and Jerusalem.
And did what?
And went up against Israel and Jerusalem.
So all that ass kissing, all that sucking up, all that, listen, it'll be a good idea. Let's go make a covenant with Antiochus so, we can be protected and nothing bad will happen to us. All that led to this shame right here in this moment. Read it again.
Oh,
and went up.
And went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude.
So here is our shame coming to smack us in the face, coming to bite us in the ass. Antiochus, after he was done defeating Egypt, turned his back against Israel and Jerusalem and brought an army to Israel and Jerusalem. When we thought we were protected underneath his rulership, when we thought it was a good idea to be under his thumb and nail, to put ourselves willingly back in captivity under Antiochus, here Antiochus comes with an army. Keep going.
Verse 21, and entered proudly into the sanctuary.
And entered proudly into the sanctuary. Gave no care in the world that this was one of the holiest places to us. Entered into our sanctuary. Keep going.
And took away the golden altar.
And stole the golden altar from the sanctuary. Come on.
And the candlestick of light.
And stole the candlestick of light.
And all the vessels thereof. Verse 22. And the table of the showbread.
Stole the table of the showbread.
And the pouring vessels.
Stole the pouring vessels.
And the vials.
Antiochus came and stole the vials.
And the censers of gold.
And stole all the censers of gold that we had dedicated to the Lord in our sanctuary.
And the veil.
And stole the veil.
And the crowns.
And stole all the crowns of gold and silver and made of jewels and emeralds and rubies. He came and stole all of this. Keep going.
And the golden ornaments.
He even stole the golden ornaments out of our sanctuary.
That were before the temple.
That were what?
Before the temple.
Keep going.
All which he pulled off.
And he snatched all. He stole everything out of our temple that we had dedicated to the Lord. How shameful is that? For you to put your trust in a devil for protection, so to be just and righteous over you, and then this devil turns his back on you and exposes your shame, steals everything that you are supposed to hold dear, steals everything that your forefathers had collected and gathered through the decades and centuries and generations and dedicated and sanctify them to the Lord. You put your trust in this heathen who came and stabbed you in the back. Keep going.
Verse 23, he took also the silver and the gold,
He stole all the silver and the gold,
and the precious vessels.
and stole all of our precious vessels.
Also, he took the hidden treasures which he found.
And anything that we had hidden and put in safe keeps and safe places, he came and found them and stole them too. Keep going.
Verse 24, and when he had taken all away, he went into his own land.
And after he stolen everything precious from us, smacked us in the face with a handful of shame. Keep going.
Having made a great massacre.
He did what?
Having made a great massacre.
How shameful is it to put your trust in a devil for protection? And he does what?
Made a great massacre.
And he makes a great slaughter of your people. He kills your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your grandmothers, your fathers, your grandfathers, your uncles, your aunts, your nieces and nephews and cousins. A great massacre. How shameful is that? That you put your trust into a devil and then comes and massacres your people. That's shameful. Because all of that could have been avoided if you would have just put your trust into the Lord. Keep going.
And spoken very proudly. Verse 25. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel.
A great what?
A great mourning.
Yeah, they're damn sure there was a great mourning of all the shame our ancestors felt for disobeying the Lord and trusting in the devil, for turning their backs against the holy covenant we made with God, to make some covenant that this devil Antiochus, a white man, was going to break anyway, and turn his back on us. Keep going.
And every place where they were,
everyone was suffering. But it gets worse. Our shame intensifies. Go to verse 29.
Verse 29. And after 2 years,
so 2 years passed, keep going,
fully expired, the king set his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah.
So after 2 years, the king sends his tax collector back to us to collect our taxes and collect tribute to him. Keep going.
Who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude.
With what?
With a great multitude.
So he came just to collect taxes and tributes, but this devil, this white man, sends another army with the tax collector. Keep going.
Verse 30. And spake peaceable words unto them.
And he did what?
Spake peaceable words unto them.
They spoke peaceable words unto us when we begged them to let us join them. When we begged them to give us license to do according to the heathen, according to their custom, they spoke peaceable words. But you know what? After he was done, Antiochus, with Egypt, he came and turned his back on us. So now they're speaking peaceable words unto us again. Keep going.
But all was deceit.
For what?
But all was deceit.
Looky here. Our shame intensifies because his words were all deceit. We're all full of lies. Keep going.
For when they had given him credence,
because when we finally gave him respect and honor and say, we forgive you for what you've done in the past to us. We forgive what you did 2 years ago. Keep going.
He fell suddenly upon him.
He did what?
He fell suddenly upon the city.
Shame. Keep going.
And smote it very sore.
Shame, shame, shame. Keep going.
And destroyed much people of Israel.
And what?
And destroyed much people of Israel.
Shame. He deceived us once again. It gets worse than that. Drop down. Go to verse 44.
Verse 44. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
So now, Antiochus wants all Israel, everyone that's not down under his rulership. He wants all of Israel, all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, anyone that's not obeying the laws of his empire, the laws of the land he rules, anyone still holding dear the covenant to the Most High God, anyone that's doing everything they can in their power to fight, to obey laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God, he wants all of that to stop. He wants everyone to obey his laws. Keep going.
Verse 45, and forbid burnt offerings.
So anyone that was still doing burnt offerings to our God, he forbidden them. Keep going.
And sacrifice and drink offerings and the temple.
And anyone that was still offering sacrifices to the Lord, still giving drink offerings to the Lord, begging the Lord for forgiveness, begging the Lord to rescue Israel, because the rest of Israel wanted to join America, wanted to join Egypt, wanted to join France and Italy, wanted to join Greece and Rome and Persia. The majority of us wanted to do that, but there was some that wanted to give burnt offerings to the Lord, and only the Lord. There were some brothers and sisters that only wanted to give sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple to the Lord, to beg for forgiveness, to beg to look upon us and smile on us again. Keep going.
And that they should profane the Sabbaths.
And what?
And that they should profane the Sabbaths.
And he wanted us to completely do away with the Sabbath, make it unholy, profane, and desecrate the day of rest that the Lord gave us. Keep going.
And festival days.
And forget about Passover. Forget about the Feast of First Fruits. Forget about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Forget about the Day of Atonement. Forget about all these feast days and high holy days that we have known to grow dear, that we have honored and celebrated and kept throughout our generations. Those that still did them, this devil wanted everyone to get rid of them, to forget about them. Keep going.
Verse 46, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people.
Look how much more our shame is increasing. He polluted the sanctuary, polluted the people. Keep going.
Verse 47, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
Look at all the abominable things that he's doing. Look at what he's doing to the nation of Israel. All because some wicked, weak brothers thought it would be better to join the heathen. All because they were able to convince all of our other brothers and sisters who were tired of suffering, who were losing hope, who thought that these men had the best interest for the entire nation of Israel. Boy, were they sadly mistaken. Let's talk about how much more these brothers increased our shame. Drop that. And go to verse 61.
Verse 61. And they hang the infants about their necks.
And what?
And they hang the infants about their necks.
This devil hung our babies by their necks because they were circumcised on the 8th day like the Lord commanded. Any person, any woman that had their 8-day-old Israelite baby boys circumcised, they hung them. These toddlers, these infants, all hung by their necks because some weak brothers who didn't value brotherhood and sisterhood, who didn't value our God and thought that it would be best to be with heathens, caused for little babies to be hung from their necks. Brothers don't do that. Sisters don't do that. A real brother, a real sister would rather die than give up God's law, statutes, and commandments. A real brother would rather die than go against the Most High power. And look at what these weak brothers did. Got almost the entire nation of Israel to sin. Got these babies murdered. Keep going. and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. He killed our people. All because weak men wanted to join the heathen and end our suffering. You know what would have ended our suffering? Taking a stance and standing firm for the Lord. That would have ended our suffering. That would have brought prosperity to the nation of Israel by deciding to stop sinning, by deciding to obey the law, statute, and commandments of God. That would have ended our sorrow. But listen, those Israelites who were still giving burnt offerings, sacrifices, and drink offerings to the Lord heard their prayers. And we're going to read about it in chapter 2. The Lord heard their prayers because there were men in Israel that were willing to kill for the Lord, that were willing to die for God, that were willing to be an example, to inspire unity and strength amongst Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that were willing to put themselves on the line to make Israel gather together since we weren't desired. And let's read about these brothers. Let's read about these men who demonstrated and oozed out brotherhood. Let's go to chapter 2. Start at verse 1. First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John. The what? The son of John. Mattathias, the son of John. Keep going. The son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Joram, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. Verse 2. And he had 5 sons. How many? 5 sons. So this man had 5 sons. Keep going. Johanan, called Cadiz, Simon, called Tassus, Judas, who was called Maccabees, Eleazar, called Amaran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apphus. Who what? Was Apphus. Keep going. Verse 6. The what? When he saw the blasphemy. When blasphemies, the disrespect and other shame to God that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me. He said, I must be dead. I must be dying to see all this destruction, to see all these blasphemies, to see all of my people that are living here disobeying the law, statute, and commandments of God and acting like these disgusting heathens. I must be dead to see these babies hanging from their necks. I must be dreaming and having a nightmare to witness all these atrocities. Keep going. Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people? What? Where was I born to see this misery of my people? Why was I born to see this misery? Keep going. And of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers. He can't believe that the sanctuary is being run by heathens, that the land is being run by heathens. He's in utter disbelief. He's like, pinch me, I must be dreaming. Because it's unbelievable of how far we have fallen from God. How much we've attached ourselves to this devil, to these heathens. Keep going. Her temple is become as a man without glory. Our temple has become like a man with no glory, worthless, meaningless, dirty, no honor, nothing special about it. A man with no honor, a man with no glory. Keep going. Verse 9. Her glorious vessels are carried away
into captivity.
Our glorious vessels have been taken, like if our people were taken into slavery, been stolen and kept away and hidden from us. Keep going.
Her infants are slain in the streets.
Our what?
Her infants are slain in the streets.
Yeah, they're hanging from trees by their necks.
Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
Young men dead, being murdered, put to death. Every time the tax collector comes, every time an army comes, we're being murdered. Innocent people being put to death. Keep going.
Verse 10. What nation hath not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils?
Who is not responsible for this? Everyone is responsible for this. All the heathens are responsible for our downfall. Every heathen is responsible for the disarray and the calamity and the destruction that our people are in right now. Keep going.
Verse 11. All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman, she has become a bond slave.
Our people have become slaves again. Keep going.
Verse 12. And behold, our sanctuary, even our beauty and our glory, is laid waste, and the Gentiles have profaned it.
Nothing but shame. All the shame that has been brought upon us simply because we turned to heathens instead of turning to the Lord. We rather rely and trust on heathens instead of relying and trusting on the brotherhood, instead of relying and trusting on the sisterhood. We should not need the help of our enemies to put food on our tables, pay our rents, pay bills, right? We should be able to rely on each other. And here in the ISUPK, that is exactly what we do. We rely on each other to survive, to overcome. Keep going.
Verse 13. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer?
So what's the point of living anymore? That's why our people in 2021 are high off their behind on marijuana, K2, Percocets and codeines and Oxycontin, and Adderalls and Xanax and ecstasy and Molly and lean. That's why we are destroyed on alcoholism. We're murdering each other in these streets with gun violence and drug use. We're murdering each other in these abortion clinics where we don't care for each other. We don't care about the elderly anymore. We don't care about the young children anymore. What's the point of even living? Why should we continue to go on living in 2021? Just like what Maccabees was saying, and I believe it was around the 130th BC, around that time. Just like Maccabees, what's the point of living anymore? What's the point? Keep going.
Verse 13. Verse 14. Then Maccabees and his sons went their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore.
And what?
And mourned very sore.
So Maccabees and his 5 sons got down real low and humble and prayed to the Lord and cried to the Lord and begged the Lord. Keep going.
Verse 15. In the mean, while the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice.
And in the meantime, Antiochus' officers came into the city. At that same time, came into the city and were going to get our people to make sacrifices unto idols, unto fake gods, unto the heathens. Keep going.
Verse 16. And when many of Israel came unto them, Maccabees also and his sons came together.
And so when the people of Israel came to the king's officer to see what was going on, Maccabees and his sons were in the right place at the right time. They too went to go see what was happening. Continue.
Verse 17. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias.
Now the king's officer is on his horse looking at everyone, and he notices Mattathias. And this is what he said to Mattathias in front of everyone there. Keep going.
On the wise, thou art a ruler.
He tells Mattathias, you are a ruler. You are a man that commands respect, that has authority, right? You are a man with honor and people look up to you. Keep going.
And an honorable and great man in this city.
And everyone in this city respects you. Everyone honors you. Everyone knows about how righteous you are. Everyone knows about how powerful and great you are, Mattathias. You are a great man. This heathen using smooth words. His words are smoother than butter. Trying to gas Mattathias up. Trying to whisper sweet nothings to him. But don't forget, in his heart was war. Keep going.
And strengthened with sons and brethren.
And look, Mattathias, you have 5 sons. You have brothers all around you. You have people that ride and die for you. You have people that work for you, that love you, that respect you. You are in a position of power. And you have favor from your people. Keep going.
Verse 18. Now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment.
Now you, Mattathias, King Antiochus wants Israel to sacrifice unto idols, unto him. You should be the first person to fulfill and complete the commandment of the king. Come, you start it off. You start this sacrifice first, so everyone can witness that this great man, Mattathias, is also in allegiance and bows down to King Antiochus and knows what's good for everyone. Keep going.
Like as all the heathen have done.
And you will do the same thing just like every other heathen has done. You're going to set an example for your people to follow.
Yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem, so shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends.
And if you do this in front of all Israel, so they could witness even you are willing to sacrifice just like the king's commandment, you, Mattathias, you will be counted. You will be considered as a great friend to King Antiochus. You will be butt buddies with Antiochus. You will be considered a great and valuable friend to King Antiochus. Keep going.
And thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards.
And you and your children will be richer beyond belief. If you thought you were rich and wealthy now, well, you're going to be even wealthier. Keep going.
Verse 19. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion.
This is Mattathias' response. And he's speaking to the king's officers. And also he's speaking so that way all of Israel, all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that are watching and listening could hear him. Read it again.
Obey him.
Now start off with thou, though.
Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him.
Even though all the people under the empire of Antiochus obey Antiochus, and they bend whenever he says bend, and they jump when he says to jump, and they bark when he says to bark. Keep going.
And fall away everyone from the religion of their fathers.
And they all gave up the customs and cultures of their own beliefs and forefathers. Keep going.
And give consent to his commandments.
And they all agree to do what the king commands them to do. Keep going.
Verse 20. Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers.
This brother is so hardcore and so zealous for the Lord. He says, but me, my sons, and the people I rode with, my brothers, we're not going to do that. We're not going to give up the laws, statutes, and commandments of our God. We're not going to give up the customs and culture of our people. We're not going to bow down when the king says to bow. We're not going to give up everything just to obey Antiochus' commandments because he's not our king. That's real brotherhood. To stand there as an example to all the rest of your people that you will not bend or budge when it comes to serving your God, when it comes to serving our God. Here in the ISUPK, we don't bend, we don't buckle, we don't compromise, we don't make agreements, we don't enter into deals or strike covenants with any heathen or anyone, even our own people that want to go against the Lord. We're going to stand firm for the Lord because that's what a real brother does. That's what real sisters do. That's what real men and women of Israel do. They stand firm on their beliefs, on their customs, on their culture, and we don't disobey God for nothing. Keep going.
Verse 21. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances.
God forbid that we should disobey his laws, statutes, and commandments. That we should get rid of Passover. That we should stop honoring the holy Sabbath. God forbid. Oh, God never allows us or never allows this to happen. Keep going.
Verse 22. We will not hearken to the king's words.
What?
We will not hearken to the king's words.
We ain't listening to whatever the king has to say. We're not doing whatever the king says he wants us to do. Sacrifice unto idols, we're not doing that. Bowing down to him, we're not doing that. Giving tribute to him, we ain't doing that no more. Allowing you to rape and rob us, we're not allowing that anymore. Allowing you to just murder innocent people, that's not happening anymore. Keep going.
To go from our religion.
And we ain't going to leave our religion. We ain't going to leave the customs of our forefathers. We're not going to stop obeying God for you, for him, for anyone. Keep going.
Either on the right hand or the left. Verse 23. Now when he had left speaking these words.
Now when he was done saying all this, after he finished making an example of himself that he was going to stand for God, that his sons were going to stand for God, that his brothers were going to stand for God. Read.
There came one of the Jews.
Here comes one of these wicked Israelites. Here comes one of these disobedient, selfish, traitorous, treasonous, sellout Israelite men. Keep going.
In the sight of all.
And in the sight of all. For in the middle of everyone can see what's going on. This disgusting Israelite is about to do something. Keep going.
To sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment.
He was going to say, F what? Forget what Mattathias said. Forget standing for the Lord. Forget that. I don't believe in God anymore anyway. To hell with the covenant. To hell with his law, statutes, and commandments, because he ain't doing nothing for us anyway. But all I got to do is sacrifice to the commandment of King Antiochus, and then I can be honorable, then I can have riches, then I can be respected. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I forget what Mattathias is talking about. I'll sell my mother's right kidney to be in that position, and that's what I'm going to do. He went up there to sacrifice, to disobey God, to disrespect the brotherhood that Mattathias was showing. Keep going.
Verse 24. Which thing when Mattathias saw.
And when Mattathias saw what was happening,
he was inflamed with zeal.
He was enraged. He went from 0 to 100 real quick with zeal for the Lord. He became a super trooper for the Lord. He became a Power Ranger for the Lord. He was ready to set it off for the Lord. He was going all out for the Lord right now. How dare you go against what Mattathias was saying, which was righteous? How dare you go against God disrespect God, disrespect the rest of your brothers and sisters by being weak and selfish and giving in to this devil, going to sacrifice swine flesh unto idols, unto fake gods. Matthias went from 0 to 100 real quick, filled with zeal. Keep going.
And his reins trembled.
And his reins trembled. He couldn't contain himself. Keep going.
Neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment.
And his face, he couldn't fix his face to be relaxed and calm. He was showing nothing but disgust and anger. His countenance was extreme wrath and fury for the Lord against this disgusting sellout. Keep going.
Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar.
So he ran and killed that disrespectful brother, that Israelite, that was willing to throw away God and accept willingly and freely this white devil. Matthias killed him right there on the altar. Spilt his blood right there on the altar. Sacrificed that wicked Israelite man right there on the altar for his disrespect to the Lord, for his disrespect and lack of brotherhood to the rest of Israel. Here you are in front of Matthias, taking a stand for the Lord, trying to inspire unity amongst Israel, trying to guide them back to serve God, and you have the audacity to think that you're above all of that. Matthias killed you. Matthias killed that man. Keep going.
Verse 25. Also the king's commissioner.
What?
Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time.
And that king's commissioner, that officer that was trying to convince everyone to sacrifice to heathens and idols, Matthias killed him too. Keep going.
And the altar he pulled down.
And the altar that was created, he pulled it down. All of that was torn down. Keep going.
Verse 26. Thus dealt he zealously for the law.
He did what?
Thus dealt he zealously for the law of God.
Thus he dealt zealously for the law of God. He killed that Israelite man, his brother, because he wasn't acting like a brother, because he was willing to disrespect the Lord, because he was going against God. Matthias wasn't having that. He went from 0 to 100 real quick and killed that disrespectful Israelite man for turning his back on God, for turning his back on our covenant, for turning his back on the law, statute, commandments of the Lord, for turning his back and demonstrating he had no brotherhood for the nation. He had no loyalty to his people. He had no sympathy that little children were hanging from their necks. He had no sympathy that innocent people were being slaughtered in the streets. He had no sympathy, no regard for all the things that were stolen, for all the shame that had befallen Israel because of wicked men like him. And he deserved death. Keep going.
Like as Phineas did unto Zambri, the son of Salem.
Just like Phineas. Well, I believe he was the grandson, either the grandson or great-grandson of the high priest Aaron, who killed Zambri, who ended up bringing I believe it was a Midianitish woman into his tent to have sex with, while Moses was putting to death every person that joined themselves onto heathens, onto Moabites. He grabbed the javelin and put it through both Zambri and that Midianitish whore he was having sex with in his tent. Just like Phineas, he had that same zeal. Keep going.
Verse 27. And Matthias cried throughout the city with a loud voice.
And did what?
And he cried throughout the city with a loud voice.
Now he wasn't crying like some, oh, I'm sad, blah, blah, blah. No, he was shouting throughout the city. He cried with a loud, powerful voice. Keep going.
saying, whoever is zealous of the law,
And he yelled, whoever is zealous of the law, whoever is trying to obey God, whoever is trying to obey laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, whoever is willing to sacrifice everything for God, whoever is willing to die for the Most High power, keep going,
and maintaineth the covenant,
and keep that holy covenant that was made to us,
let him follow me.
come and follow me. So I tell you in 2021, for all you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, if you really love God, come and join Commanding General Yahanna in the ISUPK.
That's right.
If you really love the laws, statutes, and commandments of God, come and follow Commanding General Yahanna in the ISUPK and keep the laws with us. If you really love the holy covenant that was made with Abraham and passed down to Isaac and to Jacob and to us, come and follow Commanding General Yahanna in the ISUPK. Come and follow him and stand firm for the Lord. Be willing to die for God. Be willing to sacrifice everything to grow and keep this brotherhood and sisterhood. Be willing to go through torture and pain and suffering and turmoil and sorrow and not turn to the heathens for help, but turn to God. You can do that right here in the ISUPK under Commanding General Yahanna. He's been holding this truth down. Keep going.
Verse 28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains.
And what?
So he and his sons fled into the mountains.
So they had to go into the mountains to be safe, to gather the forces, to be strong, to practice for war, because that's what's about to happen. War. We're no longer going to obey white man. We're no longer going to obey the African man. We're no longer going to obey all these heathens that seek to destroy us. We're not giving in to them anymore. Now we're standing for the Lord. Now we're sacrificing everything for the Lord. We don't want to use drugs. We don't want to kill each other. We want to walk out of the Christian church and the Muslim mosque. We don't want none of that. We want to stand for the Lord. And that's exactly what we're going to keep doing. Keep going, Baba Shah.
And left all that they ever had in the city.
And they what?
And left all that they ever, and left all that ever they had in the city.
And they gave up everything. You need to be willing to sacrifice everything. Give up your jobs, your homes, your cars, your wives, your children. Be willing to give up everything if you really love the Lord. Because your wives don't matter. Your children don't matter. Your job doesn't matter. Your 401k doesn't matter. Your $15 an hour job at McDonald's or your $130,000 salary you get at that law firm, it does not matter when it comes to serving the Lord. Keep going.
Verse 29. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there.
Listen, if you want to escape the world, if you want to come serve the Lord, the ISUPK is all over this country. Is in so many states, is in so many other countries. All you got to do is type in isupk.com and you could come join us in the wilderness. You could come join us in this school and prepare for war. Keep going.
Verse 30. Both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increase sore upon them.
And bring everything. If your children want to come, bring them. If your wives want to come, bring them. Keep going.
Verse 31. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem and the city of David.
So you can stop there. That's brotherhood. Being willing to die and give up everything. Being willing to stand firm for the Lord. It doesn't get any better than that. You can't get any better than that when it comes to brotherhood. Being willing to sacrifice everything you have for the Lord. To put your own life on the line for the Lord. And with that, I'm Priest and Officer Shagapan of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, under Commandant General Yahanna. Start out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Shalom, Israel.